This session is resumed.
Order number 3, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Tourism and International Transport, to move the second reading of the Civil Aviation Bill 2026.
Member for St. Michael West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it falls to me again to lead the debate in the Civil Aviation Bill 2026. And in moving the second reading, Mr. Speaker, I wish to give the Chamber the assurance that notwithstanding the fact that this bill was passed back in October of 2022, that we are back here today, and it was also proclaimed on the 1st of June of 2023. And I believe it was perhaps the first time that I was piloting a bill in this honorable chamber, and the bill related to the Civil Aviation Bill. Mr. Speaker, we are here again on this occasion because, as you would appreciate, from time to time, you will have matters relating to civil aviation evolving, and you will also have matters relating to the development of civil aviation. And therefore, in accordance with the ICAO International Civil Aviation Organization and the conventions of which we are a signatory, and you will recall that Barbados would have made that commitment back in 1969. Mr. Speaker, the bill before the Honourable Chamber sets out not only Barbados' obligations under the Chicago Convention, but it also, Mr. Speaker, sets out to remedy and introduce new clauses as necessary based on the fact, as I said earlier, the legislation, obviously matters relating to international civil aviation continue to evolve. Mr. Speaker, while the 2022 Act represented a significant milestone for Barbados and its achievements, it has now become necessary for us to further fine-tune the legislation so that we correct gaps that may have obtained at the point in time when we proclaimed the legislation to at this juncture where we are now in 2026, recognizing that there are new and emerging trends relating to civil aviation. The gaps, Mr. Speaker, identify, for example, compliance issues. We had a number of technical assessments. We also sought to strengthen our oversight capacity. We also, Mr. Speaker, want to ensure that Barbados maintain full compliance with the international standards. And of course, we have to maintain our credibility within these matters. Mr. Speaker, the Civil Aviation Bill introduces critical enhancements to, as I said, to address the gap areas, but it also strengthens the technical independence. And you know that's very necessary. But it also expands the legal scope. And I'll take you through, Mr. Acting Speaker, the sections of the bill, not in great detail, because as you would appreciate, the bill is 154 pages. So I don't intend, Mr. Acting Speaker, to take you through page by page. But what I intend to do, Mr. Speaker, is to look very carefully at the clauses of the bill. Part 1, as we all recognize, would refer to sections 1 to 3, refers to the preliminary, as we refer to it. It outlines the scope of the Act, the technical and legal definitions. Of course, when you look at the 2022 bill and you compare it to the 2022 Act, and you compare it to the 2022 bill, you realize that we have a number of new services. For example, we have the air navigation services, which details the definition, controlling air traffic control, air traffic advisory services, flight information. We also have, in that section, airport operator, specifically defined as a person or organization holding an air operator's certificate engaged in domestic or international commercial air transport. The 2022 Act had defined an airdrome operator twice, but did not have a standalone entry for airport operator, and we've set out to do so within this bill. We've also agreed that we should have an authorized officer defined, and we've done so within the Act as any person, in the bill, sorry, as any person authorized by the authority under Section 71 to do so. We've also set out flight, which defines the specific window of time from when all external doors are closed for embarkation until any such door is open for disembarkation. So I would just take the House through those preliminaries. Notably, the bill expands the definition as it relates to terms that bring them into full compliance with the International Civil Aviation Organization annexes. And we look at airport, we have aviation, for example, we have aviation document, we have serious incident, and we have serious injury. Section 2, so Part 2, Sections 4 to 7, establishes, as we all know, the Civil Aviation Authority as a body corporate responsible for regulating aerodromes and other aviation. As we all well know, a Civil Aviation Authority is a national statutory body that oversees and regulates all aspects of civil aviation. And I don't think I need to go into too much detail within that respect, because the bill sets out very clearly the role and the responsibilities. Part 3, Section 13, is refined to clarify the authority's delegated limits, and Section 14, of course, introduces a new provision which explicitly empowers the Director General to delegate and confer powers or functions in writing designated to the inspectors or authorized officers. Mr. Speaker, if you go to page, Mr. Acting Speaker, if you go to page 33, you will note, for example, that we have Part 4. We also have obligations under the Chicago Convention. Those obligations are inserted at Clause 15 of the bill. It says the authority shall have responsibility for ensuring that the principles and arrangements of the Chicago Convention are adhered to in that order. And it also sets out, Mr. Acting Speaker, the obligations for aircraft in distress. And equally important, at Section 20, it refers to the minister being given the authority to make regulations for giving effect to international air law treaties. So in effect, what we're doing here is that once the international air law treaty is agreed, that the minister, of course by the cabinet and by the government, the minister will then have the authority to introduce a regulation to give effect to those international air law treaties. As it relates to Part 5, Sections 21 to 27 differs from the provision in the 2022 Act, primarily through the addition of specific qualifications for the Director General and a significant strengthening of the provision of the Director General's technical independence. If we go to Part 7 and we go to Section 37, you will see there, Mr. Acting Speaker, that a new provision specifically mentioning developments like likely to attract wildlife on or in the vicinity of an airdrome as grounds for the minister responsible for civil aviation to issue directives. And Mr. Acting Speaker, it's important I stress this, because if you have an airstrip, if you have a runway, Mr. Speaker, you don't want wildlife traversing, because you know that could have serious consequences, not only for the aircraft, but for those passengers. And therefore, it is important that we recognize and specify and stress the importance of this particular section, Section 37, because we want to ensure that at all times you have an airstrip or any area within the vicinity of an airdrome that it is safe and operating within the regulatory guidelines. A new section at 37.3 Adds clarity. Development has the same meaning within the definition of the Planning and Development Act of 2019. And it's important that we do so because developments near or near, in or near around an aerodrome, those developments are critical, but if we allow those developments to go unregulated, they can have serious challenges and present serious difficulty for an aircraft coming in or leaving Barbados. And that is why we've made that provision with respect to the clarity required with respect to the Planning and Development Act. The two must go hand in hand. Section 40 empowers the minister responsible for civil aviation to issue aviation directives beyond just emergency situations. And Section 41 also speaks to directions given by the Director General. Section 45, and that's on page 49 of the bill. Section 45 introduces a new provision for the disposal of unclaimed aircraft or vehicles through sale or disposal. And Mr. Speaker, this is important because, as it says here, an aircraft or vehicle or an article or a thing which is moved by an airport licensee for an airport or an authorized airport employee for the airport or with the approval of the authority by an airport licensee for an airport must be detained in a holding area until the aircraft or vehicle or article or thing is released by order of the airport licensee concerned or is sold or disposed of in accordance with this legislation. Section 46, there's a new provision for the decommissioning and, of course, storage of aircraft, including the provision to safeguard the environment. For example, the draining of fluids from the decommissioned aircraft. Part 8, sections 48 to 75 makes provision for the regulation of aviation operators and service providers by governing the issuance, renewal, and revocation of aviation documents. And on page 55, Mr. Speaker, on page 55, Mr. Speaker, you will see right there the functions of a pilot in command. It sets out all the obligations that a pilot in command, it sets out at 54C, and they have to keep on board the aircraft all the aviation documents and records required by Article 29, Parts 1, 2, and 3 of Annex 6 of the Chicago Convention, includes a certificate of registration, certificate of airworthiness, crew members' licenses, the journey book, the autograph radio, the cargo manifest, the passenger manifest, and I can go into all those sections. And Mr. Speaker, is important because whenever you have an aircraft coming into your airspace, or if you have an aircraft leaving your airport, it is important that you ensure that all these things are properly regulated, but also that you have these documents in your possession. Because if you don't have matters, a certificate of airworthiness, then of course the aircraft should not be allowed to go anywhere, I believe. And therefore, if you don't have, for example, pilots with the appropriate licenses, then you know you'll be courting disaster. Because when the plane takes off, if you can get up, if you can't get it back down, then there's no return. So even though it sounds very simplistic, it is important to recognize that you have these records within, and therefore the functions of the pilot in command is those functions are absolutely necessary, particularly when you're conducting an international flight. And these things, of course, speak to the airworthiness not only of the aircraft but also to the security of Barbados as an international airport. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Acting Speaker, Section 74 is enhanced to capture the urgency of reporting or security threats required by the inspectors. And of course, we know that that's absolutely necessary. It no longer requires that you have to give notice. The bill sets so clearly that the Director General shall do so immediately, but no later than 24 hours. In Parts 9, covering sections 76 to 81, it covers the establishment of aerodromes and, of course, the certification requirements. Notably, this part increases of course, the fines and prison terms, Mr. Speaker, but it's also critical that we have a facility that is governed not only by proper rules, but we also have the appropriate penalties in the event of persons wishing or wanting to violate. Part 10, Mr. Speaker, sections 82 to 88, it outlines, for example, the civil aircraft registration and establish a national aircraft register for all Barbados aircraft. It must include, for example, a new provision in section 85, which speaks to the aircraft journey logbook to be kept on board the aircraft in a form prescribed pursuant to the article of the Chicago Convention, and also an enhanced section 88 on page 80, which speaks to the transfer of functions under article 83 of the Chicago Convention. And those are duly covered on page 80, section 88, like I said, of the bill. When we move to part 11 of the bill, sections 89 to 97, you will note, for example, it outlines the provision for the air transport licensing and permits. This part expands the scope to include permits and other authorizations through the relevant sections. Part 12, section 98, introducing the following new responsibilities. It sets out at page 86 that the authority is now mandated to develop and implement and maintain a national civil aviation security program, and that B, the authority is required to respond rapidly to emerging security threats. Those are all at section 1298. We enhance it to ensure that section 100 as well, task the National Civil Aviation Security Committee with approving the written National Civil Aviation Security Program. Section 103 broadens the list of persons, that's on page 92, required to undergo or to carry out the safety and security inspections. Part 15 of the bill, it introduces new provision for an offense related to a manned aircraft. Very important, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Acting Speaker, because in this section it speaks to, for example, general offenses, which speaks to prohibited items, including firearms, dangerous or offensive weapons or instrument, ammunition, explosive substance or device, or any other such substance, and it goes down the list. This is, of course, critical to passenger safety, and it's also critical to the integrity of not only the Grand Lams International Airport, but also to Barbados as a country. Mr. Speaker, if we move down, we go to sections 151 and 152 of Part 16, significantly enhance the regulation making the framework. The general regulations making the powers in section 151 has to do with the fact that it allows the minister responsible for civil aviation to address matters such as air services licensing, recreational and sporting aviation operations involving aircraft under 750 kilograms. And additionally, section 152 provides the granular framework for the minister responsible for civil aviation to make regulations that specifically carry out and give effect to the standard policies and procedures as set up by the Chicago Convention. Of course, we all know that these include the personnel licensing, the rules of air, the meteorological service for international air navigation. Aeronautical charts are very useful and helpful, particularly for travel, units of measurement, and it goes all the way down, Mr. Speaker. At section 153, it captures a major new inclusion, which introduces special administration orders for airport licenses. Upon application by the authority, the minister responsible for civil aviation may seek an order where an airport licensee becomes insolvent, has committed serious contraventions of the license, or if intervention is required in public interest or to safeguard the security and continuity of airport services. Those are all included within that section. Mr. Speaker, Clause 129 of the bill, it speaks to a security pass this section, if it's not already amended in the bill, Mr. Acting Speaker, I give notice that we will have to move an amendment here. And it speaks to insider threats. And we have to, this is an area, for example, in Barbados, that we have to safeguard, as it is a feature that you have to safeguard internationally. It's important that those who are issued with security passes, that we have not only up-to-date security passes, but the appropriate passes, and that people do not utilize the passes to commit any offense that would cause embarrassment to the destination. With respect to the drafting instructions, of course, we had all the necessary drafting that was done for this bill to give notification as well. And also, Mr. Acting Speaker, I think it's important that we recognize that, like I said, the bill was so modified to ensure that all the differences that we had with respect to the 2019 bill, that we take into consideration those areas that were not included back then and have since been revised by the International Civil Aviation Organization in respect to its standards, that we not only combine, but that we also address those international conventions, and that those international conventions align with Barbados's aviation requirements and framework. Mr. Acting Speaker, I think it would be remiss of me as well not only to stress the fact that within the bill there are a number of safety management systems. That's in section 102. It essentially ensures that all regulated organizations, including air operators, maintenance organizations, and aerodrome operators, implement and maintain the safety management systems. Of course, I don't have to stress why you need to have safety management systems at an international airport, because if you don't have safety associated airport, then you wouldn't have an airport that will conform, and you wouldn't be able to have international flights that come into Barbados. And this is something that is critical to Barbados's economy. I often make the point that when you look at civil aviation, it's almost the commencement of your tourism sector. Because if you don't have aircraft landing in Barbados, if you don't have people coming to Barbados, then you wouldn't have a tourism sector. And it's important that we recognize that tourism starts with airlift. Every visitor who disembarks on an aircraft here in Barbados contributes to the economic activity of the country. And you can well see, Mr. Acting Speaker, from the work that we've done as a government within the Ministry of Tourism as well, and that we are building out and strengthening airlift. We want to increase growth, of course, in the sector, and therefore what we're doing is that we are adding new airlift to ensure that we drive growth, and that Barbados also continues to maintain not only its share of visitors, but year on year we set out to increase those visitors. We well know that the airport, for example, you have over 2 million passengers embarking and disembarking through the Grand Islands International Airport. And when you look, for example, at Barbados's long-stay arrivals, you can see that there's growth year on year post-pandemic. We've come out and we've been growing the tourism sector annually. And as you can tell, Mr. Speaker, as an ordinary people can feel on the ground, and those who work within not only aviation, but within the tourism sector, you can see that we are making significant strides in order to continue to build out the tourism sector in Barbados for the benefit of all Barbadians. Mr. Speaker, we have 6,500 hotel rooms and well over about 15,000 what we refer to as villas and vacation rentals in Barbados. And of course, as you can tell, we are still adding to the portfolio of hotels, villas, and of course, vacation rentals. If we are to continue and to continue below that, and to ensure that those hotels, villas, and vacation rentals, that they have business year-round, we have to ensure that we have a very safe aerodrome. We have to ensure that our airspace remains safe. We have to ensure that we do all the work that is necessary, including, like I would have said in other debates, and I would have said elsewhere as well, we have to ensure that we equip the tower we have to ensure that the human resources associated with the tower, the traffic controllers and other navigation personnel who work there, that they, of course, not only have the benefits, that they continue to be trained, and that we build out the whole ecosystem relating to tourism and its success. So we're going to continue in that vein, Mr. Speaker. But it's an interesting statistic, Mr. Speaker, because when you look at the number of long-stay visitors visiting Barbados, and you take, for example, in 2025, for every one person we have in Barbados, we have over almost 3 visitors coming to Barbados. And when you look at the cruise arrivals, for example, for every one person in Barbados, looking at a population of 269,000, you have just over 3 cruise passengers coming to Barbados. So you can understand the extent of where we are going and how we want to build this out. Mr. Speaker, there are no issues at this point in time relating to carrying capacity. We can assure Barbadians that there are absolutely no issues. Of course, we still have our utilities in place. We are going to ensure, for example, in the north of the country, you will have the appropriate water supply as we're building out there. So the country can be rest assured that all the efforts of the government with respect to not only civil aviation, but with respect to the building out and increasing arrivals, we will continue to do so in a very defined way. We will continue to do so in a very logical manner. But above all, we will continue to ensure that we build upon what we have and what we found as a government, and we will continue to ensure that we drive the combined efforts. Of course, as you would have heard, the Prime Minister made a point earlier today, we have to go to Tourism 3.0. We also have other matters that we're dealing with to address matters relating to human capital within the sector, but also to ensure that when we are building out the sector, we're building out in a very wholesome way that we can all benefit from the sector. Mr. Speaker, the expansion of airlift into Barbados has also given us cause to look to see how best we can expand and improve parking positions for aircraft at the Grant Williams International Airport. Mr. Acting Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that work should commence next month on expansion of the parking apron at the Grant Williams International Airport. We currently have 23 parking positions there. Based on the volume and the number of flights that are coming into Barbados, it is in our best interest at this point in time that we seek to increase the number of the parking spaces at the Grant Williams International Airport. Therefore, we'll be adding additional 3 gates. We have 23. We'll be moving to 26. As I indicated, work will commence next month, and by the end of November, we should complete all of the cutting of the rock and all the concrete works that are necessary so that when those jets land in Barbados, they won't be compromised and they won't have any construction going on within that area. Of course, I've gone on record before as saying that the airport will be expanded. That is a discussion for another occasion, but I felt it necessary as we speak about aviation and the development of aviation that I mentioned that the parking apron, we are expanding that, and we are going to have the additional 3 parking positions. If you go to the airport, for example, any weekend, you will see an inordinate number of flights on the tarmac. The challenge for us now is that you're almost juggling for space, and that is why we have to extend the gates by additional 3. Of course, I believe that we will continue to expand. Governments always build upon policies. You have ministers who come in and they build on policy decisions to ensure that we can build out this sector. But I am pleased to see that Barbados is going in the right direction, and notwithstanding all of the challenges associated with the geopolitical space, that Barbados continues to hold its own. I can also assure the Chamber, when we look at the forecast, that we expected to have a very good winter season, based on the numbers that we have at this point in time. Of course, what we are recognizing in the market space that people are booking later than usual, which is essentially an emerging trend. But the important thing for us is that Barbados has a very strong brand in the market, and we are going to continue to build out that brand to drive even more airlift into Barbados. I know that members might ask me about American Airlines service to New York. Of course, we very much recognize it's very unfortunate that American Airlines has made a business decision in their own right and their own commercial interests, Mr. Acting Speaker, to adjust the New York to JFK flight. But I give the House the assurance that, notwithstanding that it will not be a substantial blow to USA Airlift. We continue to have major carriers that servicing us. I can also assure the Chamber that JetBlue has agreed to increase the double dailies out of New York from June through August. So that will give us even more seats coming into Barbados. And we are still in discussions with American Airlines, and we've not closed the door with respect to that that particular New York flight. But I thought, out of transparency, that it would be in my best interest to ensure that we also, I give the House a bit of a comment on it, because it's absolutely necessary. We recognize the partnership, very strong partnership, that we have with American Airlines. There's no issue relating to the Charlotte flight, no issue relating to the Philadelphia flight, and of course no issues relating to the Miami flights as well. Those are all secured. But we will continue to ensure that Barbados maintains very strong connectivity. It has been my job since I assumed this role when it was back in October 2022 to ensure that we build out airlift, and we are going to build out even more airlift. I'm happy to give the House the good news as well, that British Airways will commence their third daily service into Barbados. I believe it begins October the 25th. That third flight will be coming out of Gatwick. Of course, that is good news for Barbados, because I believe, Mr. Speaker, no, I believe it is the first time in the history of Barbados that we will have 3 British Airways flights coming into Barbados for a winter season, and no other Caribbean destination, particularly within the English-speaking Caribbean, can lay claim and credit to that. Notwithstanding that, Mr. Speaker, we also have the double daily from Virgin Atlantic. Again, that is very strong, very secure. And you know, Mr. Speaker, they will never tell you this. Mr. Acting Speaker, they will never tell you this. But you know, those United Kingdom routes are very profitable for those two. I believe they're within the top 5 in terms of profitability, in terms of routes coming to Barbados. And oftentimes, sometimes you're trying to get to London if you're going to a business meeting, or people trying to get to Barbados. If you want to sit up front, you can't get a seat. Sometimes you want to sit in the back, sometimes it's challenging. Now, this is all good news for the destination. That is why, as we are doing now, ensuring that that existing hotels and indigenous hotels, for example, take advantage of the Tourism Development Act to refurbish and to upgrade their product, and that's going well. And I want to compliment the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association and members for all the upgrades and renovation projects that they're doing, including matters relating to water tanks and emergency generators and so on, taking full advantage of the measures that the Minister of Finance would have brought to this chamber. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, it is very pleasing and indeed welcoming the fact that we have new hotels opening. We have Indigo open already. We have the Blue Monkey Hotel on the West Coast, all Suite 28 property. We have the Royalton, which will open, I'm told, later this month, and not by June for sure. I've been advised by June. They have persons who will be travel trade partners coming into Barbados to look at the property. It's always a good thing for them to add not only inventory, but to bring the travel partners to Barbados. So I am very, very confident that Barbados will have a secure future. And as a result of the additional projects that I have not listed today that will come on stream, we will see in Pendry, for example, currently under construction. We have the montage to come, and others, including the site, the former Hayward site, that we will make. So all of that, I'm just making the point by saying all of that, Mr. Acting Speaker. I'm saying all that to make the point that Barbados, in terms of its future tourism investment, we are going apace, but we're heading in the right direction. It therefore means that it will have benefits not flowing down, but not trickling down, but flowing through to every person in Barbados. Because when Barbados's tourism continues to earn as much as earning, it's helping the country. When we earn as much foreign exchange as we are earning, it helps the country. When you have hotels that are opening and workers are working longer, it helps the workers within the sector. And like I said, it is important that we ensure that we continue to build up the sector. Mr. Speaker, I had the good fortune not so long, a couple of days ago, to be in Antigua, not only for Caribbean Tourism Organization meetings, but also for the CHTA. And when you recognize the cachet, when you recognize the brand that Barbados has, when you talk to the travel trade, these are persons who go there, including a large contingent of Barbadian hoteliers who were there, and I thank them for their participation. It tells you that all is going in the right direction as it relates to not only the future development of the hotels, but also we have to look and see how best we can, in a very competitive environment, maintain our space and make sure that our brand remains very strong in Barbados. I felt I had an obligation, Mr. Acting Speaker, to tell the House these things because it is important. It is important to let the country know, particularly where we want to go, where we're going, and why we're spending the money that we're spending, so that when you see us with all the infrastructure works going on in the country, it's not only for tourists, but it's also for locals to ensure that we build out and help to develop the country. But economic activity, when you look at the earnings of the sector, it tells you the story that the sector continues to earn. And what can bless one's heart is if you can obviously every quarter the central bank government reporting and you're reporting on the progress of the economy. And like I said, tourism is a significant contributor to growth, and we have to continue to build it out. And we're doing it a very strategic way. We've indicated before that we have a very strong airlift policy, which when I came to office in tourism, I developed. We have phase 1 that we completed. We're moving to phase 2, because if we're going to continually build out the sector and drive more airlift to Barbados, we have to do so in a very strategic way. And that is what we're setting out to do. I don't think I gave the chamber the opportunity or to tell the chamber as well. I spoke to what is happening in the U.S. market. I spoke to the chamber what is happening in the British market. But when you look and see what is happening in the Canadian market, it's also good news. For example, we will have, come this winter season, Air Transat, a new Canadian carrier coming into Barbados. And we will be having 2 flights a week out of Montreal. More capacity, more airlift coming into Barbados, more opportunities for economic growth, more opportunities for hotels to remain highly, to increase their occupancy. And in addition to that, we also are coming out this winter season. We have, for example, Air Canada flying from Halifax into Barbados once a week. And the strategy is we're going to continue to work with those Canadian-based airlines to ensure that we can even drive more traffic to Barbados. So, Mrs. Acting Speaker, I'm saying that Barbados's tourism, notwithstanding the highly competitive and the highly tense global geopolitical situation, that we are going to ensure that we hold our own. I know that as it relates to oil prices, fuel is a significant cost factor in any decision. We have to ensure that when we're encouraging people to come to Barbados, that the rates of fuel, we have no control over fuel, but at the same time, what we have to do is to ensure that we position Barbados, notwithstanding its geographic location, that we encourage as many people to come to Barbados, and that is what we're doing. We have a team of officers within the ministry, within the BTMI, working on these initiatives, and we stay on top of them daily. And I give the House the assurance, notwithstanding what is happening, that we will augment, we will adapt, and we will change as necessary to ensure that we deal with any necessary threats or risks that we face within this jurisdiction. So, Mr. Speaker, Acting Speaker, I just want to make the point that we've done a lot of work in terms of civil aviation. We have a number of regulations that we are going to obviously lay. Those regulations are being finalized now by the Office of the Attorney General and the CPC. When we bring those suite of regulations, again, it will help us to enhance the aviation sector, but also give us opportunities where people can register aircraft in Barbados, and where we can have what we are seeking to do, sir, is to ensure at all times we are fully compliant with the International Civil Aviation Authority's regulations. And there will come a time, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Acting Speaker, where we will have to come back to the chamber, because like I said, it's ever evolving. Things are changing. Whenever there are changes, you have to come back and we'll make them. But suffice to say that the bill today captures all that is required at this point in time. It also helps us when we are faced, when we have up-to-date legislation. We have legislation in accordance with ICAO standards. It helps us, for example, when the airport has to undergo audits, when the Civil Aviation Authority, when they have to execute audits, be it by other entities, by state entities, or by other regulatory bodies. Updated legislation does help in this respect. I remain grateful to the Permit Secretary who's here in the chamber with us, as well as the Director General who's also here, and the legal advisor as well to the Civil Aviation Authority. They have done a tremendous amount of work along with other officers, including those within the CPC's office, to ensure that the amended bill was brought here today. And I want to publicly thank them because oftentimes you have the Minister of the Messenger. They will tell you that I worked them hard. That is the fact. They don't have the might to confirm that, but they will confirm that otherwise. But I want to say thank you to the officers who are right here in the gallery with us for all the work that they continue to do. And it is true, it is a ministry that requires you to work sometimes overtime. It requires you to work hard. It requires you to be nimble. It requires you to, sometimes they have to respond. You know, when people want to come to Barbados, you have to ensure that you have all the necessary legislation in place. But if you have to move quickly to make any adjustments, that you do so, because tourism is our business and we are all entitled to play our part within this crucial sector. So, Mr. Acting Speaker, I don't think there's much more left for me to say. I've already thanked the officers, and like I said, we will continue to build out civil aviation in a very structured way. We have had matters relating to equipment. I didn't touch on this. I'll just touch on it very briefly. Albeit very important. We are building out a lot of equipment for the Civil Aviation Authority. We have the funds in our possession. The authorities are currently working on securing and procuring more equipment for the Air Navigation Department. It is very important that we build out air navigation services. When you look around the aircraft coming to Barbados, there's a lot of new technology. Every time you see one come off the Airbus or Boeing production line, there's some new technology. And Barbados now, we have to adapt. We are moving to eventually performance-based navigation. We will speak more to that at a later date. But the important thing for us is that we are going to spending maybe more than $20 million replacing equipment and adding new equipment for the Air Navigation Services Department. We would have addressed a number of matters relating to the air traffic controllers. We are still obviously having those discussions with respect to the Ministry of Public Service and Talent Development to ensure that all the necessary requests, our negotiations continue. We meet with them once a month to ensure that we settle those. It also gives me great pleasure to inform this Honourable Chamber that we are addressing the area of the shortage of air traffic controllers as well. We currently have a number of officers in training currently. Next, we are hoping to have another batch starting in August. The Permit Secretary so advised me, and we also have another batch that we're going to be addressing. We have to do so. Barbados is not alone in respect of shortage of air traffic controllers, but fortunately the government has recognized that it is an area that we have to pay attention to. The officers are currently in training. The Ministry of Finance has graciously agreed to give us, allow us to procure 3 simulators. Those simulators are used to train the air traffic, trainees who later become air traffic controllers. Those 3 simulators will be in Barbados very shortly. We have the training plan set up for them. We're doing and taking a number of other initiatives to ensure that we build out that sector. So we have obviously in the face of attrition, just in case of any resignations, we have to ensure that we continue to build out our facility. And I'm also pleased to tell the House that Cabinet would have agreed to a paper relating to the air traffic control tower and where we have to site it. Of course, I will not go into too much detail at this point in time, but suffice to say that, of course, as we build out and expand the airport, we also have to look at the existing tower. I believe the Grand Islands International Airport was built back in 1977, and if you can think about 1977, and we're now in 2026, over 40 years, we have a duty and obligation to ensure that we enhance our equipment. But Mr. Acting Speaker, one of the things that we're getting better at it, we now have to move to a situation where we look at equipment, the date for replacement of equipment, and then we also have to go back and backtrack that whenever equipment reaches its useful life, before we get there, that we procure equipment to replace that equipment, and that is where we're doing. So we're moving with what we call a capital expenditure plan to ensure that we replace equipment, so we don't allow equipment to go by its useful life by another 10 or 15 years. And that's something that we've already put in place to ensure that we can maintain almost a replacement policy program to, of course, maintain not only equipment, but to ensure that we are modernized. As I indicated, there are a number of exciting things within the Ministry of International Transport relating to civil aviation. I am pleased that the fact that the Ministry of Finance continues to support us with respect not only to the equipment relating to Caribbean aircraft handling. We have new pushback tractors. They're new, and we're upgrading the fleet so that when we have all these aircraft coming to Barbados, we will have the appropriate equipment to help us manage to create more efficiency. Of course, there are other projects that we're working on to ensure that we continue to build out this sector. And Mr. Acting Speaker, I think you'll be pleased to know that when you get on an aircraft leaving Barbados, that you are operating within a very safe environment, and that you have professionals who can guide us through not only receiving aircraft, but also when they're leaving Grand Islands International Airport. And the fact that international carriers continue to have the confidence in us to add even more aircraft, more modern aircraft to Barbados, that says it all. If you look, for example, at Virgin, they have the new neo aircraft coming to Barbados. You would have heard, for example, last year we had the BA having the 787 Dreamliner coming into Barbados, lovely aircraft. So we are doing these things, and that is why it's absolutely necessary that we continue to build out not only the infrastructure, we continue to enhance the human resources within the Civil Aviation Department. So, Mr. Acting Speaker, I know I have gone on and on and on, longer than I anticipated, but I felt it was necessary in these matters to give the House of detailed explanation of why we are making amendments not only to the Civil Aviation Bill, but why we are continuing to do so in light of what we're trying to do. That is to ensure we build out a very strong tourism sector, which of course involves aviation. And with those concluding remarks, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, for the opportunity to contribute a few words to this important debate. Mr. Acting Speaker, we have been on a journey, sir, probably about a week short of 8 years. And you would recall, sir, that when we took office, and I reiterated in the budget, there were a number of things that needed to be addressed in the country. In the budget, I spoke to the fact that we have been removed from all of the lists that we were on. But there were two important elements that we found when we came to office that we have been working on, one of which was the audit by the International Civil Aviation Organization, and the other, which you also have the responsibility for, Honourable Member, was that of the International Maritime Organization. Two very key elements, sir, with respect to how Barbados' economy will grow in the short to medium term, but certainly if we want to have a sustained path in achieving our overarching objective of the debt sustainability by 2035, it means that we had to address not just the fiscal situation, but we also had to address those things that were critical to generating growth in the economy, sir, which related to the international transport in the airspace and international transport, sir, in the maritime space. But we're here today to discuss civil aviation. Now, sir, between then and now, and you may have observed that the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central has been quite busy, not just bringing more business to Barbados, but really upgrading and enhancing the regulatory environment within which we have to operate in the 21st century in order to, when he meets, I'm sure, with various stakeholders to say, this is what Barbados' plan is, this is what we certify that we have done, that they're confident that they can make the decision to do more business in Barbados. And so this is not just a debate about civil aviation. It's a very technical area. And being a very technical area, most citizens will not pretty much grasp what happens. But from the time an airplane lands, there are a series of activities that take place which benefits ordinary Barbadians, which cannot be underestimated in any way, sir. And we want to reinforce the point that everything that we do in this space, equally as we will do in the maritime space, enhances the opportunity for the average Bajan, sir, to earn a living. So when I see commentators in the paper saying that the growth is not being felt, if the Honourable Minister wasn't out there bringing more traffic to Barbados, if the Honourable Minister and his team were not doing the things to ensure not just safety, but opportunities for people to enhance investment, sir, then those people, whether they're Airbnb, vacation rentals, sir, whether they're the traditional hotels, or the other sectors that are linked to them, the cultural sectors, the manufacturing sectors, sir, the agricultural sector, all those services that are connected, transportation, whether you're a taxi, and I know I saw the other day an Uber taxi, I saw the decal at the back of one of the taxis, the Uber taxis. All of these are interventions, sir, that are intended to ensure that, one, the economic pie is grown, and that pie will actually be sliced up to ensure that the average citizen can participate. So this is not, or ought not to be, communicated that the government just in Parliament debating something on civil aviation. And I heard the Honourable Minister speak to the fact that we have provided resources for the upgrade of the equipment. We are currently training new air traffic controllers, and that means that there are opportunities for Barbadians, sir. All of our constituents can apply, but you have to meet the standard, because as you and I both know, sir, when we get on the airplane and we buckle up, we got to make sure that the people who are directing the traffic in and out of the airspace, that these people have met the standard and will maintain the standard, so that the safety record of Barbados, the safety with respect to all of the processes have to be followed, so that people can come to Barbados and leave Barbados safely, sir. And be assured then that there is a system in place for checking and checking and checking and checking, and therefore opportunities for Barbadians to participate in that is being made available right now to participate. So it is not just the private sector, but within the ecosystem of the civil aviation space, as we are seeking to expand the traffic through the airport, it is important to understand the connectivity between being able to attract new business, but first you've got to maintain what you have. Because you can attract new business and lose existing business, then you're still back at square one, sir. So you have to do both. And therefore, I really want to commend the Honourable Minister and his team on both sides of the ministry for working in tandem to be able to enhance. And you see the numbers of tourists coming to the island, sir. In my constituency alone, sir, I see several tourists walking down Lodge Road, sir, because they're staying in Airbnbs all in my area, all across Christchurch, and I know my honourable friend from West Central, he sees the same thing too. That was not the case 8 years ago. And therefore, as we have brought more and more traffic to Barbados, that traffic has been immersed within our communities across Barbados. And therefore, I would want to reiterate, sir, that I know people who are benefiting from the increased airlift. Ordinary people, sir, not the big people, as we would say, sir, in the rum shops. Ordinary people who've taken an opportunity to upgrade their property and put it on the market because there's a level of predictability with respect to what is happening within the tourism space. So when people make statements that the growth is not being felt, I don't know who they're talking with, sir, but I know people who have been benefiting from this renewed thrust and focus on regularizing our position in this civil aviation space. And to the extent that we are expanding the airport, sir, I know that we have been able to finalize the financing with respect to the arrangements at the airport, and we now look forward to seeing that expansion take place quickly. And so Barbadians will not be surprised over the next few months. They will see some things happening, well, some months, but over the next year or so, things happening at the airport. There will be some readjustment and these types of things. But as you know, sir, when you go overseas and you always see at the airports, you always see something happening at these airports. And therefore, Barbados is now in a position, having gone through all of the heartache of the debt restructuring, sir, all the heartache of COVID and everything now, to be able to put our airport in on a much firmer footing, in much the same way, sir, as we've been able to help support on the Bridgetown port, sir. I'm sure Barbadians in the past on the Mighty Grinder Highway will see those huge cranes out operating by the sea. Those things didn't just materialize because we wished it to, sir. We looked at where we want to position Barbados, and we made those strategic interventions with the Bridgetown port, as in the same way as we're doing now, sir, with the airport. And so this bill is part of an ongoing effort, sir, to ensure that Barbados can strengthen its position in the world to become a logistics center, not just for the Caribbean, but a logistics center in the world. Because as we are diversifying even further within tourism, our capability of being able to bring traffic from Latin America, and I know the Honourable Minister and his team have been working hard on that, but we set a simple target, sir, 50,000 tourists from each Latin country. It is not beyond us, sir. Because if we can achieve that, it means that the April to November seasonality that it currently exists, without having to build another hotel room, will effectively double our tourism output. Means that that capacity, sir, will be utilized. It means that tourism workers will not have to go on furlough in April in the down season, sir. But what does that mean? That we are working with the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education to help support the teaching of Spanish within the workplaces, sir, to help with the transition, to ensure that we then can follow suit with respect to being able to greet some of those tourists. What that will also mean, sir, is that for the private sector, because people from Latin America, sir, they like to eat late. So it means that we have to deal with some of the transport issues to ensure that in accommodating these people, that people can go and eat and recreate in the usual hours that they will do at home. And therefore, more Barbadians will benefit from that. And therefore, these are things that are actively being done right now, sir, that allows us to be able to say to Barbadians that these are not just legislative reforms, but that we now can deliver for Barbadians, sir, for the entire economy, a level of inclusive growth that we've never seen before. And therefore, this particular bill today has to be seen as part of the greater ecosystem for how we can make this economy much more sustainable. And therefore, I support these efforts, sir, wholeheartedly, because it is important to appreciate that you need to spend some money, yes, but if we don't do these strategic investments now, then once we're able we've been able to turn around the macro picture over the course of the last 8 years, we want to ensure that we have built in a minimum level of growth every year of about 3%. And therefore, doing these things together with all the other reforms and efforts that we're putting into the economy will help us to even propel growth even further. And once that growth is locked in, then, and I know that the Prime Minister has signaled to all of the stakeholders that we need to lower our energy costs, because that is particularly important, because as I am speaking here now, we have been monitoring where the price of aviation fuel is going, because these are concerns that people will have in relation to ticket prices and the like. And therefore, as a destination, we have to do, as the Minister said, we have to do everything within our power to ensure that we can maintain the level of service, the quality of service that we can offer anybody, any part of the world, to ensure that the profitability of any route coming into Barbados, that people are prepared not just to pay to get here, but when they get here, that they're able to spend money on vacation and to be able to recreate, sir, in the manner in which they can. And therefore, it means that we must do what we can locally to help lower the cost. So therefore, part of the strategy is to lower some of the energy costs over the course of the next 18 months significantly by being able to bring more renewable energy onto the grid, such that we don't have to spend the money that we're spending now effectively on the balance of payments with respect to the purchase of other fuels to be able to generate electricity. And this is important, sir, because it's part of the competitiveness of not just the tourism sector, but of the economy. And so this is, as I said, part of the ecosystem of interventions that we are putting in place to ensure that Barbados, sir, our long-term, medium and long-term growth strategy is much more resilient and inclusive. Let me also say, sir, that I know that part of our efforts in this space is to be able to have some discussions about a pre-clearance facility with the United States. And therefore, as part of what we're trying to do with respect to civil aviation, to make sure that we receive that Category 1 status in the first instance, so that that proposition becomes a reality. And therefore, this is a key part of our process to be able to achieve that. And therefore, as you know, sir, if the ability to be able to get on an airplane here and just walk off in any city in the United States would be significant for the visitor experience coming through the United States. And therefore, it is important that the staff at the airport, all of the stakeholders at the airport, the entire public, understand that you have to be able to meet these standards so that when you're audited, everybody can certify that every single process in any part of the airport meets whatever the international, not just meet it, but exceeds the international standards that are set. And therefore, the opening up of further opportunities for growth in this economy is going to be important. And therefore, this effort is not just legislative, it's not just about and it's certainly the safety is paramount, so that goes without saying, but you can't be complacent about it, because people have to show up every day and make sure that the things that were supposed to happen has happened, because when you certify that this aircraft is suitable for transit and that the checks have been done, that is important to the reputation of Barbados. And therefore, something as simple as that, equally, something as simple as the scanning of any specific space is just as important. And therefore, every I must be dotted, sir, every T must be crossed if we are going to have an even better experience with respect to the growth in the economy. So this is fundamental to people's understanding as to how Barbados is going to propel itself in the rest of the world. And I do look forward to when the facility with respect to the vocational training that we've negotiated with CAF to help support local training for persons not just to get into civil aviation, but certainly on the maritime space, because those are new skills that young people now can acquire. And I know the minister brought the Seafarers Bill 2 weeks ago. It's part of, again, this international transport hub that allows us then to be able to ensure then that we can support hangar services, maintenance services, a whole range of other civil aviation services that now puts Barbados in a different position in relation to those things. And in the same way that we want to open up opportunities for the maritime space, more people getting commercial pilot licenses and the like, is the ability now for us to give every Bajan, and to the extent, I suppose, people from the rest of the region, to come to Barbados and be trained to get into this space, sir, and to help us through that training opportunity earn some foreign exchange, but also equally be able to put skilled people in the air, on the ground, to make sure that things that are monitoring happening in the air meets, as I said, and exceeds those standards. But let me end on this, sir. For as long as I have known myself, sir, I've heard that there's another CARICOM country that's been collecting the revenue for planes transiting our airspace, sir. And therefore, if we are going to take what is ours, then we got to up our game to make sure that when we assert that this is ours, that we have the capability to enforce. And therefore, these measures are important for us to be able to say, well, you know what I mean, you look up in the sky, you see the plane passing in the higher altitude. They've got a piece of change for Barbados, sir. But if we can't validate that is our airspace up there, and that whatever the tail number of the aircraft pass in this time, sir, then the little revenue for the Civil Aviation Authority, they can come and ask me for the money. So I want them to get the equipment fast, sir, to upgrade so that we can get that money. And it'd be very serious, sir, because as we are now positioning this country, repositioning, as I said, this country to take on more of this type of activity, then I would expect, sir, as we are bringing aircraft from Africa and the Middle East, and we're working on that as well, more aircraft coming from Latin America and the like, that we must know what is happening in our airspace. Because if we don't know what is happening in our airspace, then I can't say to the honourable member for Christchurch West, well, you fly over my space, so therefore you got a piece of change for me. But the others do. The others do. And they're collecting what really should be Barbados's revenue. And therefore this, I don't mean it to sound flippant in any way, sir, but this is part of how Barbados will be able to assert its control over what is our airspace, and therefore be able to collect what is rightfully the Treasury. But I know that we're establishing a fund in this bill as we did in 2022. So therefore, those revenues will go to the Civil Aviation Authority and allow it to be able to function. So we're not doing this specifically only for that reason, but that is part of how we're able then to validate what is happening in our airspace. And once we can do so, then it means that we have the ability in Barbados' defense to say, well, okay, you can't pass, or this body can't pass, or whatever the case is, because we can assert the right to be able to do so. And therefore, it is important that, from our sovereignty perspective, that is understood, sir. And so I am happy, sir, to support this bill. I look forward to the implementation of the equipment and the training that I know the member for St. James South is eager to roll out for the civil aviation space and the broader international transport space as we negotiated with CAFSR to make sure that we can embed the teaching of Spanish, not just within the hospitality, but within the aeronautical space, because there are wonderful opportunities across the region, and we want to ensure that our Barbadians have the skills to be able to earn a living any part of the world, to ensure then that we can keep this country stable and safe. And so, sir, with those few words, I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting Speaker. And I rise to join this discussion for a couple of reasons. I'm going to start at the end. Those who occupy civilian aircraft, those who are in civilian aircraft, who are not passengers, are workers. Whether they're pilots or flight attendants, they are workers. And so any legislation that speaks to safety of civil aviation, civilian aircraft, is legislation that speaks directly to occupational safety and health for those who work on those aircraft. I was once on a tarmac somewhere in North America some years ago, and the flight was delayed, and then it was delayed some more, and then it was delayed some more, and you know how human beings are. We started to grumble. I don't remember if I was one of them, but I am human too. And when you're stuck on an aircraft and you have legs the length of mine, you feel it. But the pilot came on to the intercom and he said, "It is better to be on the ground and wish you were in the air than to be in the air and wish you were on the ground." At that point, all of the grumbling ceased. It came to an immediate halt. It did not grumble to a halt. It groaned. It stopped immediately. But Mr. Speaker, I also have been concerned about some recent incidents and accidents, particularly at airports in the United States. Some near misses, but also some actual accidents. And I think these things, particularly because when they happen, human lives are lost. So this is not just about cargo being lost. This is not just about an aircraft being lost, but because lives are lost, then every policymaker has to be concerned to make sure that the skies and everything that relates to civil aviation is as safe as possible. That the operation, that the regulation, that the facilities all speak to an understanding that we must make the space, that we must make the equipment, that we must do everything in our power to make sure that there is safety in these spaces. Now, Barbados is a small island, all of us know that. Much of our economic development is based on our airlift. And I say this as speaking specifically to those who see airlift as only benefiting tourism. I know that the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central is fully versed with this. We've spoken about this, I think, long before we were ministers of government. But lots of our economic development, whilst a significant portion relates to tourism, and you need airlift to get to Barbados. We used to say in the BHTA many years ago, you can't walk here, you can't drive over the border, you have to fly. You can come by boat as well, but you have to fly. And so tourism is the obvious one, but we were also very clear, and I've said this in public before, maybe at the time when I was leading in the industry, that much of our international business we were able to attract because of our airlift. Because a person was sure that they had 1 or 2 flight options every day into or out of Barbados. And that was and continues to be a very attractive proposition to those persons of high net worth who want to base their business activity in Barbados, when they know that they do not have to wait on a weekly flight or twice weekly flight, that there are flights every day to my jurisdiction, to where I live primarily, or sometimes 2 flights a day, sometimes 3 flights a day. That has made and continues to make Barbados a very attractive place for what we used to refer to as international business. I spoke to high net worth individuals. Much of our construction, our Prime Minister, Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast spoke to that this morning in some measure. But much of our construction is either tourism related or related to those high net worth individuals who are building substantial residences on the country. And so much of our boom in construction is related to airlift. And so for our economic development over many decades now, airlift has been key to economic development, has been key. Even in areas that I have not spoken to, when we have been seeking to get expertise from outside of Barbados, one of the attractive elements of that proposition is that I can get my specialists in area A or area B, renewable energy, utility, whatever it is outside of the tourism or what sounds like tourism and construction. One of the attractive propositions is that I can get my specialists in today and out tomorrow, because time is money, and that facility, the availability of airlift, continues to be one of those bedrocks of our economic development. Now, my intervention is not going to be long, but I wanted to make sure that we spoke to a couple of things. Because of the importance of airlift and civil aviation to our country, to its national development, and that national development is both social and economic, there are a number of things in the bill before us today that I find particularly interesting and important. One relates to documentation, and there is a certain rigor that is contained in the bill with respect to documentation, the need for proper or appropriate documentation, and the severe penalties against false documentation. Significant rigor I find in this bill that speaks to the fact that we want to establish a certain integrity. That when planes come into Barbados, those who work at the airport must be able to look at documents and feel relatively sure that what they're seeing on their documents, what has been presented to them, represents something real, represents something that will allow us to be able to continue to say that we are a jurisdiction that has the framework, the legislative framework that allows for the rigor for us to be able to boast that we are meeting international standards. It is important for an international gateway, a gateway that prides itself as having the potential to be a significant hub. It is important that we meet the international standards. And so the matter of having written into this bill adherence to the Chicago Convention is also important, because that in itself sends a message to the international community. It sends a message to both our competitors and our collaborators that we are serious about upholding the highest standards. And there is no reason why, Mr. Speaker, we should settle for anything less just because we are small. As a matter of fact, there are lots of disadvantages of being small, but there are also significant advantages, because many of the standards that larger geographic locations will find difficult because of the wide expanse of land, we have a certain measure of control over a smaller geographical space. And so we are able to make sure that the rollout of international conventions, international standards, international best practices are able to work even in a country as small as ours. The other thing about this bill which triggers my interest is one that relates to inspections. Now, the Honourable Member for St. George North, speaks to me, and being very nice in my words, speaks to me from time to time about this particular matter, because we both understand, I think all of us understand the importance of inspection. I know from a Ministry of Labor Department perspective, I know from a Ministry of Social Security, National Insurance perspective, that if legislation is to make sense, if a claim of adherence to best practice is not to ring hollow, then inspection and effective inspection must be in place. Now, the bill itself has built in, I spoke to documentation before, but there is built in a certain rigor with respect to inspections. And I would want to say to those who administer this act and those involved in the entire civil aviation, the authority and the parent ministry, I'll give them the same encouragement that people like the Honourable Member for St. George North gives to me, that we have to make sure that when the legislative framework, when the bill, when the act speaks to inspection, and it includes all the rigor that this bill includes, we have to make it real. I will say, Mr. Speaker, without making it seem as though inspections in my ministry are not important, I would have to say that inspections that make sure that when a plane is in the air, that there is some trust you can put in the system to allow it to get from Barbados to another place safely, that is significantly more important. And so the matter of inspections in this framework, we have to make sure that we get it right. There are a number of people issues. I spoke to occupational safety and health as an overarching but there are a number of specific issues with respect to people and people resources that the Civil Aviation Authority and the ministry responsible for international transport has to make sure is in place. The Honourable Minister, the member for St. Michael West Central, spoke, I think, to the matter of the tower and those who work in the tower. There is also the matter of those who will do the inspection. We have to make sure that the people who work in these areas are people of the highest skill, of the highest competence, that they are honest people who will not cut corners or will not allow anybody to force them into cutting corners. People must be trained, people must be exposed, people must understand, those who work must understand that they are critical to Barbados maintaining its reputation as a place where there are high standards, and particularly now with this new bill, what will be an act, that the rule of law governs all that we do. And so, Mr. Speaker, this bill coming, as the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central said, so soon after the Seafarers Bill, says to us, and should say to the country, that beside the day-to-day, what happens in a place, a factory, a church, a school, parliament, Barbados, because we recognize that our development is based on more than what happens within our land space. Having two bills, one that speaks to work on the sea, and one that, for me, speaks to work in the air, says to me, and I hope it says to the country, that this government, the Barbados Labour Party in government, recognizes development as embracing all aspects of our jurisdiction. It embraces our land, it embraces our sky, it embraces our seas. And so we as a government are prepared to make sure that we have the frameworks in place for all of these spaces to make sure, like I often say, that there is protection so that there can be production. And once we, Mr. Speaker, are able to pull these parts together, and I see every evidence that we are doing so, once we are able to continue to pull these parts together, then they will speak in a very direct way to the matter of ensuring that our national development is both people-centered but also complete in its approach, so that we can make best use of everything that happens on our land, in our sea, and in the air. And so, Mr. Speaker, I wish only to say that I put my full support behind this piece of legislation, this proposed piece of legislation, this bill. I believe that it speaks directly and specifically to ensuring that there is occupational safety and health for those who work on aircraft. It speaks, for example, in section 109, to, sometimes we call it air rage. It speaks to what happens when there's bad behavior, and there's significant fines for those who behave bad, threaten staff in the sky, because you believe that there are enough police around, you can get on as you feel like you can exhibit your bad manners. This bill speaks to protecting workers in the sky. And I believe that if that was all that it did, it would be a good bill. But it goes significantly beyond that to ensuring that we continue to have an excellent reputation as a place that can act as a location for all the major carriers. And we've had carriers from almost every continent landing at our airport because there's an understanding that we maintain high standards. But the world is changing, times are changing, and I commend the Honourable Minister for recognizing the need to update the legislation, and so the old act will be repealed when this comes into force, updating our legislation, recognizing the changes that are taking place, and ensuring that Barbados maintains its credibility, Barbados maintains its reputation for high standards, Barbados maintains its reputation as a country that places human beings, workers, at the center of the agenda and does all that it needs to do to protect them, both as individuals, but particularly as workers. And with those words, few words, Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
Member for St. Michael West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Let me also take this opportunity to thank both honourable members, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central and St. Peter, for their contributions this afternoon. Perhaps, Mr. Acting Speaker, I should start off with the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, where he took us. And it had to do with people believing that they're not, in some quarters, believing they're not feeling what's happening in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, you don't have to debate the facts. And even if there's some people who like to argue about arrivals and long stay arrivals and cruise arrivals, I like sometimes to count the beans, as they say in my corporate life, my former corporate life. So even if you don't believe, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member of St. Peter is reminded that in his profession they refer to him as bean counters. I'm not trained in finance. I can read maybe a balance sheet and a P&L, but I also believe that there's some people in this country who would argue that, you know, tourism arrivals, and we used to play this game before, argue whether arrivals up or down. For me, I look at what you can take to the bank and what the country can obviously earn. And Mr. Speaker, year on year post-pandemic, it is without contradiction, not me saying so, listening to the Governor of the Central Bank, reading the reports from the Central Bank, that year on year, we've been earning more in tourism. I believe when you look at 2024, at one stage, we were earning upwards of 300 million more a year. And even if those who wish to doubt that, you can see the level of economic activity within the sector. It is clear that when I move across Barbados and I go in my constituency and I moving around Barbados, there are people, including taxi operators, the boat operators, the people who work in this sector, but I always tell you, Minister, thank you, your government doing a good job. We are seeing what tourism is doing for Barbados, but it is not staying at the top. Like I made the point consistently, this is not a time for trickling down. This is the time for the benefits to pour through to the people of Barbados. And if we continue to go there and we work hard, and we can increase arrivals, but I like to look at the dollar value, if we increase more spending in the country. And that is why we set up a visitor spend task force. If we can, for example, do exactly what the CTO has just agreed to do at our last meeting, to set up a supply side committee. And the supply side committee basically essentially is to ensure that we retain more foreign exchange in Barbados, in the region. And that we, using Barbados as a reference point, the country will recall that we set up a committee, the Barbados Linkages Council. And we did so exactly to ensure that we can drive more synergies with agriculture, manufacturing, and all other sectors to ensure that we can retain even more more foreign exchange in Barbados. So we are well on our way to doing so. And I think it's important, oftentimes, that when we are right here in this August chamber, that we remind the Barbadian public and remind those who may wish to criticize us, because there's some people who like to say tourism is the only game in town. But we are building out the sector in a very disciplined and a controlled way to ensure that all Barbadians benefit from this sector. And I have not heard anybody complaining, anybody abusing the government with respect to its tourism performance. And that's a statement of fact. There are people who are generally happy. Now, I also know that you have yesterday's performance will not necessarily be as good as tomorrow's performance. Because, you know, when you're a minister, and I've always taken this, and my officers would tell you that I say this all the time, you're only a temporary occupant of the chair. And I make that point all the time. So as Minister of Tourism and International Transport, you have to earn your keep. So you have to keep growing and building up the sector in a very strategic way, as I said in my opening remarks, to ensure that we continue to do what is right for Barbados. Mr. Acting Speaker, in my contribution earlier, I made the point that we're training more persons en route to become air traffic controllers. What I didn't tell the country is that there are another 15. I didn't call the number, so I wish to put the record into hands, sir, that we train. We already have the first 15 in training. Come August, we're going to have the second 15 in training, and we intend to have another 15. And that is what we're doing to ensure we build out the human resource capacity in Barbados. It is a situation when I joined the ministry, I was confronted with a shortage, but we are well on track to put in the appropriate policy mechanisms in place to address the shortage of air traffic controllers and the AIS officers as well, Aeronautical Information Service officers, and the supervisory levels. And on that point, I want to, of course, thank the Honourable Member for St. Philip West, the new minister who's responsible for the Ministry of Public Service and Talent Development, that is his title. I want to thank her and her team at the Ministry of Public Service and Talent Development for working closely with us and the unions, the Barbados Workers Union and the NUPW. We meet monthly to go through these issues, and we've made significant progress. Of course, we still have other matters to resolve, and we're going to resolve those, including, as I've already indicated, matters related to aspects of conditions of service, and we will do so. You know, sometimes when you're in a position, whatever you inherit, you have to fix. And this is another situation where we have to fix what we have to fix. And we are going to continue to improve the human resource capacity. We're going to ensure that the persons who are appointed and all the necessary matters relating to human resources, that we attend to those. And again, I wish to thank the Honourable Member for St. Philip West, who has been working very closely with the unions and my ministry to ensure that we resolve those issues. As it relates to other matters relating to the upper airspace, I take the point the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. It is a matter that we are dealing with, but the reality is that we have some matters to fix internally before we can go the route of managing our upper airspace. We have some technology that we have to implement, and we are doing so. We also engage some consultants to also look and help us with respect to performance-based navigation, which will help us with fuel and safety and other matters relating to new technologies associated with aviation, almost creating like highways in the sky, to ensure that we use more satellite-based technology to guide aircraft into Barbados. So we're working on those initiatives, and I hope that the opportunity will be given to me very shortly, where I can also update the Honourable Chamber with respect to what we're doing with respect to Barbados's upper airspace. It is an area, it is very lucrative, but we have to ensure that we put the necessary technology and systems in place so that we can control our upper airspace. I also want to take this opportunity as well to recognize that we will continue as we build out aviation. As I indicated earlier, tourism is a major beneficiary. If you don't have aircraft landing in Barbados, then you can't build out a tourism sector. We are working hand in hand with the international Transport Division to accomplish those objectives. And once we accomplish those objectives, Mr. Acting Speaker, I'm confident that we will continue to drive even more business to Barbados. As it relates to Barbados, a hub for the Eastern Caribbean, Barbados continues to be a hub for the Eastern Caribbean. Part of our strategy, as you will recall, in landing even more aircraft from United Kingdom in Barbados. What we're doing is that we're also creating opportunities where we can have what we refer to as tag flights. What that does, it helps us to build up additional travel between the Caribbean countries. You know, we were challenged post-LIAC. There was a significant challenge. I'm happy to report that we are seeing increasing numbers coming out of the Caribbean as a result of that strategy, along with the fact that we have Inter-Caribbean, which is essentially based here in Barbados, with a significant hub in Barbados, continue to expand the operations. And that going hand in hand with our initiatives for tag flights, we will continue to build out that strategy. And of course, we have corporate airlines flying into Barbados. Again, as part of the strategy, persons who wish to go to South or Latin America, they no longer have to go up to United States of America and come back down. You fly to Barbados, you get on a corporate airlines, and if you have interline agreements, it makes it even easier for you. You go down into Panama and you can do your connections, and that is working well for Barbados. With respect to the training, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke to this, not only in Spanish, but the Honourable Member for St. James South launched an initiative, the Hospitality Gateway Initiative. That is also, to my certain knowledge, doing very well. I am aware there's some participants in that program who have commended on the quality of facilitation that's happening there. And I think it's all part of what we have to do to further develop and build out the tourism sector. So I really want to compliment the Honourable Member for St. James South with respect to the training initiative there. Mr. Acting Speaker, I indicated earlier that during the winter we have 4 flights. Winter just passed, we had 4 flights, scheduled services coming out of the United Kingdom. This coming winter season, Mr. Acting Speaker, we will have 5 per day. Unheard of in the English-speaking Caribbean. And Mr. Speaker, Acting Speaker, I look forward to the day, sir, that I can put the appropriate policy responses in place to ensure that we can have sometime soon, we can have 6 flights coming out to the United Kingdom on a daily basis in the winter season. And if Mr. Speaker, we accomplish that, it will be a worthy accomplishment. But we cannot stop there. We have to build out the sector. I would love, for example, to see A380 aircraft landing in Barbados. The tarmac, it can handle it, it can land here. But I also know that you have to work hard, extraordinary hard, to accomplish these results. It is not easy, never is it easy, and I'm never going to give anybody reason to believe that as a Minister of Tourism and National Transport is an easy job. Those who've been before me will know that well. And I can tell you, but I give the House assurance that as long as I continue as a Minister responsible for Tourism and International Transport, I will continue to ensure we build out this sector so that Barbadians can enjoy it, and that we give those visitors who come to our shores an opportunity to experience what we have. Our heritage, our culture, our food, the warmth and the friendliness of our people, the things, those core elements, Mr. Acting Speaker, that separate us from our competition. And those elements, Mr. Acting Speaker, that can best be described as attributes of the Barbados brand. So I tell the country, no need to be concerned. We operate in a very volatile environment. From time to time, because of international oil prices, things will change. But I give the House and the country the assurance that we will continue to have the appropriate policy responses in place to ensure that we maintain what we've been building on in Barbados. And Mr. Acting Speaker, with those brief remarks, I beg to move that the bill be read a second time.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. Those honorable members in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I beg that to move that the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that I now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. Those honorable members in favor say aye. Those members against say no. Me think the ayes have it. This House will resolve itself into committee.
The amendment.
This one.
You know.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Clause 1.
Mr. Chairman, beg that clause 1 stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, permission to call the bill in parts from here on.
Permission granted.
Part 1, clauses 2 and 3.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that part 1, clauses 2 to 3 stand part.
The question is that part 1, clauses 2 and 3 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 2, clauses 4 to 7.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 2, clauses 4 to 7 stand part.
The question is that part 2, clauses 4 to 7 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 3, clauses 8 to 14.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 3, clauses 8 to 14 stand part.
The question is that part 3, clauses 8 to 14 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 4, clauses 15 to 20.
Part 4, clauses 15 to 20 stand part.
The question is that part 4, clauses 15 to 20 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 5, clauses 21 to 27.
Part 5, clauses 21 to 27 stand part.
The question is that part 5, clauses 21 to 27 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 6, clauses 28 to 36.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 6, clauses 28 to 36 stand part.
The question is that part 6, clauses 28 to 36 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 7, clauses 37 to 47.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 7, clauses 37 to 47 stand part.
The question is that part 7, clauses 37 to 47 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 8, clauses 48 to 75.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 8, clauses 48 to 75 stand part.
The question is that part 8, clauses 48 to 75 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 9, clauses 76 to 81.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 9, clauses 76 to 81, start part.
The question is that Part 9, clauses 76 to 81 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 10, clauses 82 to 88.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 10, clauses 82 to 88, stand part.
The question is that Part 10, clauses 82 to 88 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 11, clauses 89 to 97.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 11, clauses 89 to 97, stand part.
The question is that Part 11, clauses 89 to 97 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 12, clauses 98 to 111.
I beg that part 12, clauses 98 to 111, stand part.
The question is that Part 12, clauses 98 to 111 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 13, clauses 112 to 114.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 12, clauses 112 to 114, stand part.
13, sorry.
13. Clauses 112 to 114, stand part.
The question is that Part 13, clauses 112 to 114 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 14, clauses 115 to 121.
Beg to move that part 14, clauses 115 to 121, stand part.
The question is that Part 14, clauses 115 to 121 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 15, clauses 122 to 140.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move an amendment relating to part 15, specific clauses 1 to 9. I beg to move that the current clause be deleted, and we substitute that by adding the following: security pass 129A, a person shall not use his office to influence the issuance of a security pass to a person who is not properly entitled to such a security pass. B, knowingly make a false statement for the purpose of obtaining the security pass or retaining the use of a security pass. C, knowingly use a false or unauthorized security pass to gain entry into a secure or restricted area of an air drone, or to gain access to an aircraft or an air navigation installation. D, use a security pass which has been issued to another person. Use a security pass on the E1 when the holder is not on official duty. 2, for personal use for activities unrelated to official duties. Or 3, for any private or personal benefit of any kind. F, permit or allow any other person to use a security pass for any purpose. Or G, use a security pass to escort or facilitate access for a person not authorized for unescorted access unless such escort is permitted and conducted in accordance with documented escort procedures. 2, a person who contravenes subsection 1 is guilty of an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of 50,000 or to imprisonment for a term of 5 years or both. 3, a holder of a security pass who A, fails to comply with the condition or term which relates to the use, wearing, or display of the security pass. B, fails to wear or display the security pass on an aerodrome in accordance with the terms of issue when required to do so by an aerodrome operator. C, fails to promptly return a security pass. 1, its expiry, or 2, he is no longer authorized to possess it. D, continues to use the security pass after it has expired. E, fails to immediately produce the pass for inspection or verification upon request by a member of the Barbados Police Service, 2, an aviation security inspector of the authority, or 3, an or 3 airport security personnel is guilty of an offense and liable on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000 or to imprisonment for a term of 3 months or both. Mr. Chairman, those are the amendments. And therefore, that part 15, 122 to 140 as amended, stand part.
The question is that part 15, clauses 122 to 140 as amended, stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 16, clauses 141 to 165.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that part 16, clauses 141 to 165 stand part.
The question is that part 16, clauses 141 to 165 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The first to the sixth schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the first to the sixth schedule stand part. Be the scheduled bill, sorry.
The question is that the first to the sixth schedule be the schedule to the bill. All honourable members in favour, say aye. All members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that you now report to His Honor the Acting Speaker the passing of one bill in committee as amended.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the Acting Speaker the passing of one bill in committee as amended. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees has reported the passing of one bill in committee.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be read a third time.
The question is, this bill be read a third time. Those honourable members in favour say aye. Those members against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be now passed and be cited as the Civil Aviation Act 2026.
The question is that this bill be now passed and so cited. All honourable members in favour say aye. Those against say no. This bill is now passed and so cited.
Order number 7, sir. In the name of the acting leader of the House, to move the passing of a resolution that an address be presented to His Excellency the President approving the proposed reappointment of Dr. Nigel Taylor, JP, SCM, to the office of Ombudsman.
Member for Christchurch West. St. Philip West, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. I beg to move that the resolution now pass approving the proposed reappointment by His Excellency the President of the Ombudsman, Dr. Nigel Taylor.
The question is that this resolution be now passed. All honourable members in favour say aye. Those against say no. This resolution is now passed. Honourable member for St. Philip West.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I beg to move the adjournment of the sitting until Friday, May the 29th at 10 in the morning.
Beg second that, sir.
The question is that this honourable chamber We now adjourn until May 29th, 10 a.m. in the morning. Those members in favor say aye. Those against say no. This honorable chamber now stands adjourned until May 29th, 10 a.m.